Getting beat up by 9 guys in Syracuse, to me, there's not a whole lot of shame.
Welcome to the Heel to the Face podcast.
And this right here,
with your hosts, Jarod Wicks, Brandon Icebreaker Clements, and Paul Boy Green Esden.
It doesn't matter what your name is. And that's the bottom line. Cause Stone Cold
I have received an email.
Don't forget to email the show at heeltotheface@hotmail.com.
Best there is, the best there was, or the best there ever will be.
Brett screwed Brett because it's what's best for business.
To be the man, you gotta beat the man. The champ is here. Oh yeah, New Day Rock. And if you're not down with that, we got 2 words for ya.
Tweet us using the handle @HeelToTheFace.
Woo! Let's get ready to suck it!
The bell is rung, so let's step in the ring with your hosts, Paul, Brandon, and Jarod.
I might as well tag me up with my buddy from Syracuse.
What a week it has been in the world of sports entertainment, as this is the Heel to the Face podcast on Sports War Radio, Rat Pack Radio, and on iTunes. And we got a lot to get to this week as we are joined, as always, with Brandon Icebreaker Clements. You can find him at Twitter at Icebreaker21. Later in the show, Paul Boy Green Esden at BoyGreen25 will join us. And as always, your host and moderator, myself, Jarod, at Just Jarod Wicks. And what a week it was in the world of sports entertainment. I led the show off with that exact statement, but I want to get things started. There's all these topics to talk into, and we have a lot to get to in a short amount of time, and some of the stuff we might even be saving for next week because there's just so much to talk about. But I want to start out with this, and this is something when I saw it immediately at SummerSlam, I know a lot of other shows are probably not going to be talking about it because they're not as meticulous as I am. But I noticed as soon as SummerSlam hit the air, the disappointment. And the disappointment, it was a fine show as the wrestling takes place. But again, this is sports entertainment. And I remember we talked a few weeks back about the getting rid of and the removal of pyro in the show. And I thought, well, this is SummerSlam. They're going to do something good. This is the WrestleMania of the summer. WrestleMania was completely void of pyro. And let me tell you, I know WWE thinks that fans aren't going to miss it. But right away when the show kicked off the air, knowing that what I know, reading all the rumor websites of knowing that this is something that they're getting rid of, I immediately noticed that there was no pyro.
Which is stupid.
And
why'd you get rid of it, though?
I mean, on top of the fact that they've been using these same sets for months and years. Now, last year we saw a new SummerSlam set. And what I mean by new, I mean kind of different. But then, obviously, what we noticed the night after SummerSlam was that was now the new Raw and the new SmackDown sets. So SummerSlam last year had a kind of a new set, which was cool, but then it just turned into, it's our new regular set, which means this year's SummerSlam just had that set, which is the Raw and essentially SmackDown set. So the pay-per-view, the WrestleMania of the summer, had the essential same set that we saw on Raw, on SmackDown every single week. NXT TakeOver, literally all week. They didn't change one thing. We have no pyro. And all I'm saying is if this is even remotely close to how they are going, if they're going to scale back even just a little bit come WrestleMania in New Orleans, I am going to be very upset because I'm already upset now. This is sports entertainment. This is ridiculous. I'm not saying that you need to lead off every single Monday Night Raw or every single SmackDown with a big, huge pyro fireworks display like you have in the past. I understand that things can be scaled back. But at the same time, in the world that we are living in, where I just went to a concert on Monday night in Toronto that reminded me a lot of a WrestleMania show with pyro and with confetti and streamers and everything that you can think of when it comes to entertainment. For WWE in this day and age, this is not 1985. People are not just going to turn out because Hulk Hogan's going to be there. They want the whole package. And for Battleground or Backlash to be lacking this, that's one thing. But for WrestleMania of the summer, your 4 hour, 6 hours with pregame event of the summer to be lacking not just a lot of pyro entirely. I thought the NXT TakeOver show, to be honest with you, had a better presentation. The NXT TakeOver show led off with a live band. And you lead off with a live band, more of a sports entertainment, more of a hardened, older audience. You know, I just felt that if you want to go the full wrestling route, NXT TakeOver had a better presentation in that regard.
I'll be honest.
I didn't watch the entire NXT program. I wasn't with
but
my
it
schedule.
Let off
but
with a live band.
It was.
I mean,
I know.
If you're going to get rid of Pyro or you're going to get rid of something like that, lead us off with something that makes us realize we're not watching just Monday Night Raw with a really good main event. That was the problem I was having.
That was a great show, by the way. NXT Takeover. What is it? Brooklyn 3 now. That was a great show.
It's hard to follow because they're all called Takeover. So 3 it's not really Takeover 3 because it's the third this year. It's Takeover 3 Brooklyn, but that means Survivor Series. The Takeover they had before that will also be Takeover 3 because it'll be the third one before Survivor Series. Essentially, it's like Takeover 12.
Let me, on that topic. I mean, did you watch the NXT Takeover?
I did. I didn't watch it live. I watched it afterwards. What I did enjoy about it is there was really no wasted time. There was 5 matches on the card, and it was 2.5 hours. So all the matches were essentially something you'd be interested in. There wasn't, let's say, what we had in pay-per-views past, where Heath Slater decides to come out and have an impromptu match while they're doing something in the back. No, there was just 5 matches. They were good matches. They all went over 13 minutes, including the main event, which went about 25 minutes. There was no, it wasn't 5 matches because they had a Puff Daddy concert or anything long or drawn out between the matches. It was just 5 good matches, lasted the length of what before was a typical WWE pay-per-view. Overall, if you're an NXT fan, I thought TakeOver was a really good show.
Yeah, the downside to that, of course, in the sports entertainment world, and just like sports in general, injuries happen. And the biggest injury on that show was Asuka. And, and I was reading.
She's going to be hitting the sidelines with Big Cass.
Yeah, which we'll get to Raw a little bit later on that. But the thing with Asuka is like she is on fire. Like she broke Goldberg's streak. She's rolling. And this injury couldn't have come at the worst time, because I was reading, I don't know how true it is, but depending on how the severity really comes out after, they're still doing more testing on it. The more severe it is, the more likely she loses her title, which I think in a sense is not a bad thing, because then she never, she relinquished it. But how would you play that? Say that scenario happens where they strip the title from her and say, well, you're not fit to compete, because you know how they do that with 30. If you can't compete for 30 days, you can't.
I think they got to keep her. With the Asuka story, they got to have her keep the title. I think NXT is not this product like WWE is, where they are so much invested in not care. Like, the NXT fan is an older fan, and NXT shows are much more sprawled out, meaning the next pay-per-view NXT is probably 2-3 months away, maybe even further than that than the WWE pay-per-views. So, and again, I think the audience, too, is an older audience. It's not, a kids-based audience. It's mostly 18 and older, while WWE is probably 12 to 40. NXT is essentially 18 to 40.
Yeah.
So I think with a story like Asuka, you got to keep her with the belt, at least for a little bit. I mean, it's just such... NXT doesn't have, the stars in the traditional way like WWE has the stars. They build stars up in the more wrestling-oriented way.
I think
you got to keep the belt with her.
I was going to say, to your point, I do think they do have to keep her where she's at, regardless of how long she's out. It was just something I was reading, something I was thinking about earlier before we record the show, and I'm like, what are they going to do here? How are they going to play this? I mean, to me, you kind of keep her as like the Brock Lesnar rule, so to speak, where Brock shows up whenever he wants. So he doesn't have to defend his title in the mandated, what they used to call the 30-day, like they did to Naomi. They kind of she lost her title because
it's kind of strange that they were talking about that at the same time while people like Goldberg had the other belt. That obviously, if you ever, again, when I write that book, 101 Reasons Professional Wrestling is scripted outside of the matches, one of the reasons I'm going to say is, hey, how come Naomi never brought up when Daniel Bryan was taking the belt off her about how Goldberg had the Monday Night Raw belt, and that 30-day stipulation didn't seem to work the same way. That was never brought up.
That's a double standard. It's like it's based on how much dollars and cents you bring into the program, because Brock Lesnar does. He's a money machine, so to speak. He brings in a lot of dough, and the McMahons love him for it. But the problem, with Asuka, the situation is she's not bringing in the dollars and cents, so to speak, of the NXT. NXT is doing well on its own, anyways. Asuka is the only women's competitor down there right now that, besides Ember Moon, that I can take seriously. There's only 2 competitors down there. It sucks for them because they were the generation after the great, the 4 horsewomen. You got Charlotte, Becky, Bayley, Sasha.
I think after the Mae Young Classic, I think we might get some more high dollar women into NXT as well.
I hope so, because I'm not sick of this Asuka Ember Moon thing. I think they're tremendous competitors. I think Ember Moon's got a bright future, just obviously along with Asuka. But there's not much there. Like, you can't sell the Australian girls, the iconic duo there. They're not ready. They're like, I guess they'd be like mid card women's division, which in NXT means you're not really doing much. If you're mid card and the main roster, it's a whole different ball game. But I will say this: there's I'd say three takeaways from the show. Sanity looked great. They took down the Authors of Pain. That was I didn't see that coming, to be honest with you. I know Sanity's kind of, they're really talented.
I think it was their time. I think they were due.
I thought
Eric Young is not a young competitor at all.
No,
he's been in the professional wrestling ranks for quite a long period of time.
I thought they were going to keep
I think his getting called up is that I know now that he's a champion, it's not going to be for a little bit, but
it's imminent though.
I think he needs to get called up sooner than later.
So let me ask you
because
this,
of the fact that he's been in professional wrestling for so long.
Do you call up the Authors of Pain, or do you let them dominate NXT for a while? I'm on the fence on that. I think
keep them for a little bit. I think WWE really has dropped the ball a lot with the Ascension. So I don't really think that the rush to bring kind of a similar style of tag team in if you're not going to do anything with the Ascension while you have them in WWE. And you know what I really liked about the NXT show is I liked how they restocked the cupboard before they took away Bobby Roode. So before Bobby Roode leaves, you, instead of waiting down the line where you have a depleted roster, you bring in some fresh faces to get us excited so that when Bobby Roode leaves, we're not sitting there going like before when the Samoa Joes left or the Kevin Owens left, we were going to, or Nakamura, we were going, well, what are we going to watch NXT for? I like how they brought in somebody who we're excited about, so we noticed Bobby Roode leaving just a little less.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, when I saw Adam Cole and I saw O'Reilly and I saw
Bobby Fish.
And I saw Fish, I saw them when they made their on-screen debuts. I was like, okay, this is what's going to happen. Rude's going on one of the shows. I couldn't tell you which one it was. I was like, Raw or SmackDown. He's going to one or the other. There's no doubt. So I'm like, and it
seems like a lot of the NXT guys are going over to SmackDown. Obviously, Nakamura went there, Bobby Roode went there.
Which, Raw or SmackDown is now more glorious. So that's another thing. Speaking of call-ups, a guy that needs to get called up, as soon as possible. This guy is super talented. Aleister Black. I love that guy. That guy is tremendous. His character, his skill set. To me. He's ready to go. He doesn't need a championship. Get his rear end up to the big
I would
leagues.
say I would like him to get called up by the first of the year.
Yeah.
I'm not saying right now, but give obviously, one at a time. You call people up. You don't call them up in mass amounts, but maybe around Survivor Series, maybe the next takeover.
I'm thinking this. I think for Aleister Black, I'd like to see him debut at Royal Rumble.
Like Ty Dillinger.
It would be more of an impact. I love Ty. It's my guy. But Aleister Black, that is a guy that is, if he chooses to do so, his character is good. He has this great aura about him. I think he's very talented. He's got a chance to make I think he's gonna be a great champion. But the guy you're missing on Sanity, yes, Eric Young is the guy. I love Eric Young, but the guy who I think has the most potential, because not only is he younger, I think Killian Dane. That guy is super talented. I love that guy.
It's filled with a lot of guys who essentially are better performers than a lot of the people on the main roster. That's not really a doubt. If you want to talk about performance, most of the people in NXT, I'd say majority of the people in NXT are overall better professional wrestlers.
Yeah, I agree.
So if we're just going to be looking at skill set alone, I could go to Ring of Honor and bring about 10 guys into WWE.
Yeah, that's true.
Look, Bobby Fish and Adam Cole. Bring him in NXT. I think if you want to talk professional wrestling, Adam Cole and Kevin Owens could put on one of the best matches, or Kevin Owens or AJ Styles and Bobby Fish, or any of those competitors against each other could put on some amazing matches. But WWE has to toe that fine line of sports entertainment still being traditional WWE, and kind of sticking to the point we were talking a little bit about women. If you get the time, we don't really have a watch this segment, so I'm going to say if you get the time, it'd be beneficial. I found it very informative and very beneficial to myself if I'm going to watch the Mae Young Classic to watch that bracketology special, just because you don't know a lot of these women, and you're not going to be invested. This is like a tournament where you have no team in the tournament. So to watch that bracketology and to learn more about all the women makes it so that you'll actually then want to maybe